Oh man, it's a cold morning. It's about 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm out to do a morning winter hike. And sometimes I wonder, is it worth all the effort to have freezing hands and just to be cold in general? Today, I want to talk about mistakes and mistakes that I have personally made in my backpacking. Things that I think are important for me to share that maybe bring some perspective to my approach with my backpacking, or things that I've learned over time that I think they're important to talk about. So let's get up the trail a little bit. Let's keep talking about it. So the fact of the matter is, mistakes happen in backpacking all the time, and what I try to do is learn from those mistakes and apply them to future trips and my gear and my trip planning so that I am able to have a better experience the next time I go out so that I don't repeat that mistake. I also want to thank Aura, who is the sponsor of today's video. We're going to talk about Aura here a bit more in a minute, so let's get into it. All right, big mistake number one that I've made in my backpacking is just becoming obsessed with pack weight and expensive gear, thinking that weight of my pack and having the lightest, most expensive gear is going to give me the best experience possible in my backpacking. And I have learned that is just simply not true. You do want to have quality gear when you go out that is going to perform and protect you from the elements, from the conditions that you are in, so that you do stay safe and have a good experience. But I have absolutely fallen into the trap in my backpacking career, if you will, of getting too obsessed with expensive gear and trying to find the lightest of everything that in some instances has actually bit me in the butt. There have been times where I have taken specific pieces of gear out and been like, why did I take this? This is not the right piece of gear for the situation. And it was focused on the mindset of, let's take the lightest thing possible, and then I end up with not a good experience. I don't think that weight should be the most important thing that you focus on, or the fact that a tent is made out of Dyneema, or it's the lightest sleeping pad possible, or whatever scenario you want to put the conditions on. It's not necessarily going to be what you exactly need for the trip and the experience that you're trying to have. And I absolutely have really worked on trying to learn to use the right gear for the right situations, regardless of what the weight is and what the cost is. If it makes sense for a budget piece of gear to use on a certain trip and it is the right application, it checks the boxes for performance, then I'm all about it. And that's going to be more important than getting focused on overall pack weight and how expensive the piece of gear is, because it doesn't actually always translate to a better experience in the backcountry. So I want to take a minute and talk about Aura, who is the sponsor of this video, and just discuss the idea of making mistakes about your online security. I was somebody that thought that it wasn't important at all to care about identity theft. Like, that's never going to happen to me. I'm never going to have fraud on my financial accounts. However, I do believe that it is super important. And as I've been using Aura as a service for identity theft protection, for fraud prevention on my financial accounts, to use as a VPN for added online security to protect my personal data and such, they provide so many options of things to use for protecting yourself online, scanning the dark web for your personal information that has been leaked from data brokers. In fact, my brother and I were recently talking about Aura after he signed up for the 14-day free trial, and he said in a text message to me, he said, the selling point of Aura is the fact that they also remove your information from data brokers. Companies that sell your personal information to other companies that hit you with robocalls, spam, and all sorts of things, they work on your behalf to remove that information. Like, Aura seriously is fantastic, and the more that I use the service, the more I use the app and the VPN, the more I feel secure about being online and just everything about it. So I highly recommend checking out Aura. I've got a link down in the description for you to check out a 14-day free trial, or go to aura.com/backcountry. I want to thank Aura for sponsoring this video today. let's go down the trail a little bit and talk about mistake number 2. So I know I was complaining about the cold earlier, but it has turned out to be a beautiful, beautiful morning. The sun is out, glistening snow right now. It's just fantastic. I love it so much. Big mistake number 2 that I've made in my backpacking is just pushing my gear to the limits, which has resulted in poor experiences in the backcountry. And this specifically is in relation to my backpack and my sleep system or my shelter, which is a huge mistake because your big 4 is so important to your experience on a backpacking trip. And what I mean by that is, for example, I have pushed my backpacks over the years to being overloaded with too much gear in a smaller pack, and that has resulted in not a comfortable carry because the pack is not designed for the loads that I have put into it. I'm just simply carrying too much weight, and so I've needed to use a slightly larger backpack to be able to carry the gear appropriately so that it distributes properly in the backpack and on my back and just creates a better experience overall. In addition to that, my sleep system is something that I have a big tendency of just pushing it to the limits and not really caring about making sure that I am going to be as comfortable as I possibly can be. And this goes back pretty far into my earlier years of backpacking, where I didn't realize that I sleep colder than a lot of people do, and so my sleep system needs to be adjusted for the fact that I just simply do not sleep as warm as other people, and so I need to make sure that I've got a sleep system that is going to be a bit warmer for conditions where typically a slightly warmer bag or colder bag, I guess you would say, would be more appropriate. And I've made the mistake of like, well, the temperatures are going to be this overnight. I can just bring X temperature sleeping bag and I'll be fine. And it's resulted in me not having a warm night of sleep. And over the years, I've had to adjust what I take with me, even additional layers and such, to make sure that I'm sleeping warm, because the fact is I just simply sleep colder. And especially now as I've gotten older, that is more the case than ever before. And so I have to be way more conscious when I'm planning my gear out for a trip to make sure that I am really looking at the weather, trying to get as much information as possible so that I get the best experience possible from my sleep system. Big mistake number 3 that I've made in my backpacking over the years is just the idea that because I have experience and I've been backpacking for a long time, that I have learned all of it, that I am an expert and I have knowledge that has reached its capacity, which is just simply ridiculous and not true. I still have so much that I can learn from being out in the backcountry. And one of my favorite things that I have really put a lot of effort and time into recently is when I'm out with my students, trying to learn from the experience that my students are having when we're out in the backcountry, because for a lot of them, this is the first time that they've been out on a backpacking trip. So just because I have spent a lot of time in the backcountry doesn't mean that I can't look at those opportunities when I'm out with other people and see the way that they are doing things and maybe adapt or change my approach in some ways that can enhance and make for an overall better experience for me. And just like, I don't know, having a bit more humility when it comes to backpacking and my approach to it, and just trying to remember that overall, the goal is to go out and have a good time and spend time enjoying being outside. And that is, I think, what is most important. So I'm constantly trying to remind myself anytime I go out, like even today, what can I learn from being out on the trail today? And I think part of that was that I didn't really prep probably as good as I should have for the early morning cold that I was experiencing. My legs were super cold, my hands were freezing. Fortunately, things have warmed up now, but I could have been better prepared. And so that's what I'm trying to take away from this particular trip, this quick hike this morning, that I can apply to the next time that I go out. So I want to have a conversation down in the comments section and have you tell me what is a mistake that you have made in your backpacking that has been a really good learning experience for you, that has made your backpacking trips better because of what you learned and applied from making that mistake. So I appreciate you guys watching today. If you are not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.